Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? This bright, early Sunday morning. Just checking in with everybody in the chat box. If you can just check in and how you're feeling. Before we get started with class, I just want to check in the chat box. If you can just please make a note about how you're feeling. Are things, is it exciting, all the things that you're learning? Excited, Marian? Awesome. Nothing too overwhelming yet, I hope. Doing your homework. Is everyone doing their homework? Any completing any preliminary readings that might have been assigned to y'all or videos? Great, Marian, perfect. All right, so I will tell you that it's really important that you do stay current with all your assignments. If you have any reading assignments or videos, because you can very, very quickly get overwhelmed if you kind of get behind. So just develop those good study habits now from the very beginning of the program and you will be great. Also, if you haven't already connected with each other, it's a good idea to have a study buddy, somebody that you can bounce ideas off, or if you want to share questions. So please do that as well. We're going to go ahead and start our class, but first we'll start with pranams and invocation to Dhanvantri. Dear Lord Dhanvantri, I give you namaskar and pranams. Your lotus feet is worshipped both by all. You can heal the world from miseries, diseases, ailments, old age, and fear of diseases. O Lord, give us your blessings and medicines so we can help the sick and the unwell. All right. Very good. So today we're going to have fun. I think this is a really light, fun class, and we're actually just going to do a side-by-side comparison of Ayurveda with other health modalities, because as you start working with clients, which will be later in your program, you're going to get a lot of questions, and you're going to get people who have tried other forms of non-traditional health care. Maybe it's acupuncture or other type of treatments. And they're going to have questions that they're going to ask you, well, what's the difference between Ayurveda and acupuncture? What's the difference between Ayurveda and whatever else they've tried? So the purpose of today's class is to give you an overview so that when you start working with clients, you can actually answer their questions. And then also just have a good solid understanding of where Ayurveda fits with everything else, right? So we'll go ahead and get started. So holistic medicine, this is a term that's used a lot in different settings. You'll see it in chiropractic settings and just all over the internet. And so what holistic medicine really is, it's a philosophy that really believes in treating the whole person. And so, of course, holistic. So we're treating the whole person, and that there's an integration in that mind, body, and spirit. So it really promotes that a human being, those three elements have to be addressed. We can't separate the body and the spirit from the mind, or we can't treat a certain disease and not think about the person's mental status. And I'll tell you that I think Western medicine and medicine in general has come a long way, because they're getting it. They really are starting to understand the connection between mind, body, and spirit. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to be looking at that a little bit deeper. And then, as always, I try to make my classes as light and fun and interactive as possible. So I will be asking y'all for y'all to chime in and participate in class as well. And please feel free to take some notes. All right. So looking at alternative medicine. How many of you are familiar with the term alternative medicine? In the chat box? How many of you have heard that term alternative medicine? In the chat box, please. Okay. You've heard it? Okay. All right. So for those of y'all who have heard that term alternative medicine, what does that mean to y'all? Like what do you, when you hear that term, what's your immediate gut reaction about the term alternative medicine? Non-Western, okay. What else? Something other than prescribed medication from the doctor, great, Elizabeth. Non-traditional, natural. Anybody else? Something that they're taking pharmaceutical meds, okay. Have any of you heard the term alternative medicine in a negative connotation? No? Okay. Yes. Yeah, Marion. I mean, you get that sometimes, right? So alternative medicine, it really does refer to an alternative medical system, what y'all put in the chat box, right? Other than that Western type medicine. And so it incorporate, yes, thank you for calling that out. I appreciate it. Herbal voodoo. Yeah. So, we're hippie stuff. Yep. Yep, exactly. So it's things that are not, it's not traditional. It's not like they're going to see some of this stuff being discussed at their doctor's office. And so, yeah, like there is a negative connotation to the term alternative medicine. And so I share that with you because you may run into some of this, not only with your client encounters, but even with friends and family. So that's why this class is really important. We try to help you be able to have a good understanding so that you can actually help dispel some of those misunderstandings and misconceptions having to do with alternative. And I personally believe, I think that there's a place for everything, right? I do believe that there's a place for different systems and complementary medicine, like our slide says. And so complementary medicine is really just, it describes a range of medical therapies that maybe fall beyond the scope of that scientific medicine, but that can be used alongside treatment of disease and ill health. So I'll tell you, especially in terms of the cancer care, you'll see major cancer institutions and cancer treatment centers embrace, it's been for several years now, embrace meditation. They embrace different types of non-traditional approaches to health and wellness. So like I said, it's getting better. I think that they're understanding that whole mind, body, spirit connection. So fun fact, real quick, in the chat box, nearly what percentage of adults in the US have used some form of complementary and alternative medicine therapy? What do you think? Including dietary supplements. What do you think in the chat box? What's the percentage of adults who've tried it? 30%, 40%, 30, 40. Everybody has to answer this question. And it's just for fun. Did everybody answer already? Yeah, it is actually 40%. That is a great deal of, and so what does that tell you? So that tells me, as an Ayurvedic counselor and now practitioner, soon to be done with the program, it tells me that 40% of the population is open and they're craving, they're looking for something different than the traditional healthcare system. And that's where what we're doing and what we're offering comes into play. And so as Ayurvedic counselors, your scope is so important. And I know I talked to the students when we had our in-person workshop last week, that we have the ability to really help not improve and change the trajectory of someone's health, but of everyone in their close circle, whether that's, if it's a mom, if she can start making some changes and cooking differently for the family, then that's going to benefit the husband, that's going to benefit the children, right? And then she goes and starts talking to her best friend, oh, guess what I'm starting to do now? I'm doing tongue scraping and I'm drinking warm water in the morning. Do you see the ripple effect? 40% of the population are looking for something different. They know there's got to be more than just popping pills. They know that there's more, and people are looking for it. And I think we're in a perfect place to move forward and to really make a difference in our communities and really just overall in the world. So integrative medicine. So we're going to start there. And so what this approach is, it really does, they're seeking to understand the individual as a whole and applying different forms of therapy to improve wellness. So integrative, and that's actually it's a real thing. I work with a doctor who's an integrative physician. It's practicing medicine in a way that incorporates elements of the complementary and alternative medicine into their treatment plan. So they're doing what they're doing like as a regular doctor. She's an amazing doctor. Her patients love her. They follow her. They keep their appointments. She's a great, great doctor. But because she's open, and actually I had an opportunity just to hear her interact with a patient once, and her approach is she's doing the diagnosis, she's running the test, the blood work, everything else like just in a regular traditional setting. But then she talks about meditation. She talks about wellness. She talks about stress management. So it's really great to see that. All right, so another true or false, y'all. So allopathy treatment does not include medicine, true or false? And if this is new to y'all, a new term for y'all, it's okay. We're just having fun. Just trying to keep everyone engaged. True or false? Allopathy treatment is not. False. Allopathy is another term for conventional medicine. True or false? Is it another term for conventional medicine? Yep, it's true. Allopathy treatment includes surgery. True or false? Yep, it's true. Allopathy treatment does not include biomedicine. True or false? What do y'all think? Does it include biomedicine? Yep, false. Awesome, good. So now that you have a little glimpse of what allopathic medicine is, just another term for modern or mainstream medicine, okay? So that's what that is. So in the chat box, I'd like to hear a little bit about your personal experiences with the healthcare system. It could be good or bad, or maybe it's something that how your maybe experience changed from one provider to a provider. Maybe you had one doctor who was your primary care physician for 2 or 3 years, and then you switched. And so now you're having a different experience. So in the chat box, if some of y'all can write what your experience has been with the traditional modern just medical system that we all interact with. And I know it takes a minute to write in the chat box. So what has been your experience? And has that maybe changed? Mostly dissatisfied. Okay, and I want you to think about what's been dissatisfying about it. So give me a little bit more detail on that. What's dissatisfying to you? Anyone else? Very rushed, dismissive. Thanks, Elizabeth. Side effects, okay. No time to really talk to the doctor. Yes, Marion, I hear you. Anybody else? What's been your experience? And has anybody had a good experience with their provider? Yes. Okay. So if you've had a good experience, can you explain what you had a nice osteopath, Dr. Manjali? That's great. And that's a different approach as well. Anybody else? So you had military docs most of your life, Jamaria, little interaction with the doc only. The only one that was great was in Germany. So, and you love your OBGYN, so sweet and personable. Yeah, so I've actually had, like everybody else, we've had some good and bad experiences. I was actually very fortunate to have 2 of my 3 children with midwives. So it was just a great experience interacting with the healthcare system and working with the midwife. Elizabeth, quick diagnosis, move on to the next patient. Yeah, you had a good experience before with a smaller hospital and military base. Yeah, and I think, honestly, y'all, I'm a nurse, as y'all know, and I work for a large healthcare system here in Austin, Texas. And there's the challenge of you have to see patients and how to improve access to care. You want to see more patients, but then the person in front of you may not always get the time that they feel that they need at that time. So I do think, like I said, I think that there have been some definitely great strides in changing our approach to healthcare. I know I see it with our organization. We do ask those questions. We do ask about their spiritual and religious beliefs. We do ask about their what they do for stress and how many hours a night they sleep. So I think that it's slowly but surely, I think it's coming, things are coming along. We also practice very holistically in that we have behavioral health counselors, we have social workers. So we really are trying to meet as many of our needs of our clients. We've got, you know, pharmaceutical doctors of pharmacy, PharmDs, who actually can help co-manage patients with their doctors, so that if they don't maybe have a lot of face time with the doctor, but they've got another provider that's helping support their care. So I think there are improvements definitely coming. So like I said, our allopathy is just the term to describe modern or mainstream medicine. And it does include conventional medicine. It does include, you know, giving medicine, biomedicine. And so it really is just that traditional approach that includes medicine, surgery, radiation, and all those other treatments that we're familiar with. So what are some of the shortcomings? I think we've already described some of the shortcomings of this approach. It's not always holistic in nature, but we do recognize some groups are trying to make changes to that. And, you know, the biggest thing that I've seen in my career as a nurse, that the traditional healthcare system has really been set up to perpetuate that idea that people only go to the doctor when they're sick. And until that changes, we're going to get more of the same. It's going to be, you know, the more and more medication, and we have to change that dialogue. We have to change that perception of interacting with the healthcare system. And then fixing the symptoms instead of root cause. Somebody in the chat box already had made a note similar to that, right? And then not paying attention towards, you know, regarding the body's ability to heal. We're created in a way to heal. And then I think another shortcoming of the traditional medical system is that it's not, you know, we have dietitians in our group, but not every doctor, and especially if you go to a private doctor, they're not going to have access to a dietitian. And so the you know, trying to describe a diet for a certain person, which we know is not, you know, based on on their dosha, but it's just not there. They're not looking at what people are eating in terms of how that's impacting their health, unless it's diabetes or something obvious like that, right? Or cholesterol. But other than that, they're not talking about diet and foods and whole foods and you know, vegetables and that kind of thing. Now, the strength of allopathy, of course, is that it's great for emergencies, right? And effective for disease management. So you definitely want to be able to go to the emergency room to see a doctor, right? When you break a limb or something. And then another strength of this approach is that it is evidence-based. So it really is a safe approach to managing disease. Okay, so I think this is for most of us and for a lot of us, this is one of our favorite subjects. How many of you have heard yoga and Ayurveda referred to as sister sciences? How many of you have heard that? Besides Mary and anybody else? Okay. So actually, philosophically, both yoga and Ayurveda spring from that common ground of Sankhya philosophy. And I think that y'all might have already had a taste of that. And if you haven't already had Atul's class, you probably will very soon. And he does an amazing job of describing a very beautiful but complex philosophy. So philosophically, both yoga and Ayurveda really do come from that shared philosophy. And the goal of both is really to eradicate pain and misery. The roots of these philosophies come from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Charaka Samhita. How many of you have studied the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali? Marian, you started? Anybody else? I think if you are, you know, yoga instructors, I think all programs refer to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, if I'm not mistaken, in some shape or form. So the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali actually provide a roadmap for righteous living that you ordered the book, but you haven't started. You read them every morning, kind of like that. Oh, that's beautiful, Elizabeth. That is amazing. So it really provides a roadmap for all of us, just for a roadmap for living, regardless of culture, or regardless of your religious belief. It's not about trying to change your religious beliefs at all. It's just how to live right, and how to live healthy in the world. And so they outline the do's and don'ts, which is called the yamas. Some people refer to it as a social ethics. And so it describes the, practicing nonviolence, practicing kindness, truthfulness, non-stealing. And I'll tell you that when you look at these concepts, truthfulness, yeah, truthfulness, I believe in being truthful. But when you look at the Yoga Sutras Patanjali, it's pretty deep. It's like, how do you practice truthfulness? How do you practice non-stealing? And I mean, even stealing somebody's, you're in a setting and somebody has done something good and they're highlighting their accomplishment, or maybe a family member is giving somebody a compliment, and you steal it, you step in to steal their thunder. You're like, oh, well, I did that too. But you know what? I did something better. We're stealing. It's a form of stealing. We're stealing somebody's thunder. We're trying to direct the attention. So that's even the form of non-stealing, or at least in my opinion. And then living or experiencing life in moderation, that whole thing about living in balance, right? And then generosity, like living a life avoiding hoarding and greediness. And then the yamas are talk about those personal ethics, like, purity or cleanliness, to be content, to do your best, even things, when things seem tough, and then study yourself. And we see that with Ayurveda as well, that self-study, and then stay humble, surrender yourself to God or your higher self, or whatever, you believe in your higher, your being. And so there's a lot of correlation and a lot of intersections between yoga and Ayurveda. I just talked a little bit about the yamas, but they both approaches, actually both our yoga and Ayurveda do use asana, the yoga poses. And of course, the sense control, which you'll study more about, dharana, which is concentration, dhyana, meditation. We definitely incorporate meditation in our recommendation plans for our clients. And those approaches, whether it's the yoga poses, the pranayama, the breathing exercises that you're going to recommend to clients, meditation, we approach it from a way to bring health to the physical body, right? But also to help balance that mind. So I kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit, that the 4 pillars of life in Ayurveda, which you might have already got in one of your previous classes, if you remember. How many of you studied the 4 pillars of life in Ayurveda? Did you already have that class in the chat box? When they talk about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha? Anybody? Does that sound familiar? Maybe not yet. So dharma is doing our righteous duty, okay? Artha is the financial success, security that we need for daily living, right? We all need money, right, to live. Kama is something deep, are my pleasures aligned with my life's purpose? I mean, think about that. The Upanishads tell us, as is your desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. As is your deed, so is your destiny. And you are what your deep driving desire is. So to practice kama means to practice being fully present with whatever you're experiencing. And this is shared by yoga and Ayurveda, right? To being fully present when you're doing your yoga poses, when you're doing hatha yoga or whatever form of yoga you're doing, you have to be fully present. And that's how that's our approach in Ayurveda. When you're going to encourage clients that when they're eating, that it's a beautiful experience to sit and eat, to eat mindfully, so that they're aware of the signals that their body is sending them, so that when they get that signal, I'm full, but not stuffed. I can stop eating at this point. So that's where there's a lot of correlation between yoga and Ayurveda. And then we definitely use the postures, the yoga asanas, to balance the doshas, of course, to promote health and vitality, and then also for that spiritual development. How many of you practice yoga? In the chat box, please. How many of you practice yoga? Jamaria, okay. And I'm not saying that you have to be yoga instructors or anything like that, but there are going to be some basic yoga poses that it'll be helpful for you to understand, so that you can refer to your clients as part of your recommendations, okay? So Marian, we'll take that offline because Atul will be giving that class. I don't want to get anyone confused. Okay, so some of y'all kind of met me last week. I'm all about the basics. The understanding the doshas, mahabhutas, and the gunas, the qualities is your foundation. Like I told the group last weekend, make your flashcards, do your cheat sheets, whatever you got to do to memorize this, to know it inside out. This is your foundation. Everything, every future class that you have will build upon this. Okay, so what are the mahabhutas? What is vata comprised of? What two elements? In the chat box. Very good. And what are some of the qualities? And don't overthink it. Just when you're thinking about the word air and space, what qualities show up for vata? Dry, light, cold. Yep. Mobile, that moving. Pitta. What is pitta comprised of? Which two elements? Two mahabhutas. In the chat box. Yep, fire and water. And so how does this show up? What qualities do we start seeing? What are the qualities? Hot, sharp, oily, very good. Anybody else? Yep, that liquid, that light, mobile, very good. Kapha, what two elements comprise kapha? Yep, very good. And the qualities? Yep, heavy, cold, dull, oily, slimy, smooth. I always give that example of the kids stuff, the goop, or that slimy stuff. I don't know what it's called, but my kids played with it when they were young, and it was horrible when it got into the carpet. That's all I remember, and on their clothes. So again, this is your foundation, and the reason why I started with this is knowing what you know, what we just reviewed on that previous slide. Okay, what do you think if you have taken yoga classes or yoga instructor? What type of yoga poses, asanas, do you think you're going to recommend to individuals with a vata imbalance? What do you think? Yes, Marianne, grounding, exactly. And so we're going to want to encourage them that they have a quiet, more grounded practice. They can do Surya Namaskar, but they got to do it slow. I will tell you that 10 years ago, when I had a very strong vinyasa practice, man, my vata was all over the place. But what did I go do? I went to go do all this, this fast-paced yoga practice. That's not what I needed. And I was joking last week during the workshop that when we would do Shavasana, oh my God, I would lay there and think like, when is this going to be over? And I would like look at my watch, like, oh my God, this is taking so long, because vata was just crazy in my life at that point. And now I love Shavasana. That's got to be my favorite pose now these days. All right, so Pitta. What do you think? What are we going to recommend for Pitta? They got that fire and the earth element. What kind of practices do you think we're going to recommend to them? Any thoughts? Yes, cooling. Thank you. So the moon salutations would be great for them. And the forward bends. We also want them to hold longer. And we also want them to practice in a non-competitive way. These, Pittas are going to love competition. They like holding a pose longer, knowing that I was able to hold tree longer than the person next to me. Like they love all of that. So we got to calm them. We got to cool them down. And it's not about the competition. Kaphas, what kind of practices do you think kaphas need? Remember, they've got a lot of that earth element. We love kaphas, warm and fuzzy. And but what in terms of yoga or just or exercise in general, what do you think kaphas need? Yep. Yeah, heating and motivating. We need to energize kaphas. We need to get them moving, right? And so this is this faster movements. They can do Surya Namaskar. They can do that a little bit faster, right? All right, good job. So fun facts, just real quick. Yoga is over 5,000 years old, one of the oldest physical disciplines in the world, and actually introduced here in the United States in the 18th century by Swami Vivekananda when he came to Chicago. 36 million people in the US practice regular yoga on a regular basis. What does that tell you? That tells you that when you're actually starting to do your client encounters and when you're offering your recommendations, yoga asanas, the poses similar to the ones that we reviewed in the next slide, they're going to be welcomed by a lot of people. Then alternatively, you're going to have individuals who say, I'm not flexible. I can't do that. My body structure, for whatever reason, I can't do yoga. So there's some, but you can definitely work through that. My philosophy with yoga is I'm actually a certified 200-hour instructor. I don't teach right now, but I believe in yoga for everybody. Everybody, 2 words, not everybody, but everybody. Because I really do believe that yoga can be done by everyone. We just got to help explain and show them which poses and how. So yoga is the most commonly used complementary health approach in the United States. And get this, there are 1 billion, there was close, this is actually in 2021, all these fun facts, there were close to 1 billion hashtag yoga posts on Instagram. And I know I'm guilty of some of those as well. Modalities said half of Ayurvedic practitioners in the US started as a yoga teacher. Yep, that's how I got here. All right. So we're going to do a real quick side-by-side comparison of Ayurveda and TCM. Are y'all familiar with the term TCM in the chat box? Have you heard that before? So both of these ancient holistic systems I love. They're both focused on harmonizing. The TCM acknowledges there are 2 traditional medical systems of Asia that are considered very, very sacred. They're closely related. Like I said, they're focused on harmonizing, and both systems actually are based on the classification, on a classification method of constitution. There's some differences, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But Ayurveda and TCM both identify and classify unique characteristics of each individual. Sounds familiar, right? Our Vikriti and Prakriti, our dosha system. And the result is that both approaches really deliver and create this personalized approach to medicine and treatment so that the client gets the best results because it's personalized. TCM acknowledges the 7 constitutions of yin yang. Have you all heard of that before? I think we've all seen the little, I don't want to say logo, but the picture, right? The phlegm wetness approach, wetness and heat, blood stasis. But similar to Ayurveda, TCM classifies a person based on the 5 elements. So this is where there's a similarity based on the elements of metal, earth, fire, water, and wood. Actually really looking at the specific, TCM really looks at the determination of the specific element, how it's governed by 2 opposing qualities of that chi energy, and that's known as the yin yang. Okay, so then the state of equilibrium of a person's health is determined by those 2 energies, that yin yang approach. So what is yin yang? I found this real quick and I wanted to kind of share it with you because I know that we're all familiar with the symbol of yin yang, but the traits of yin energy are that feminine, it's more passive, it's cold, dark, negative, inward, soft, down and back. Yang is that masculine energy, it's active, it's hot, it's light, positive, outward, hard, upfront. So a lot of similarities in some of these terms, right, when we're looking at our doshas. And I love this because look at the recommendations that they offer. Eliminating heavily processed foods. Again, that's the same thing we do in Ayurveda. They invest in feng shui, and you're going to be learning more about that. That's a very fun class when you're starting to talk about, how how Ayurveda incorporates the different elements in our home. So you're going to be learning about that. And then they actually, just like Ayurveda, they believe in eating plenty of vegetables and fruits. And so a lot of similarities between the 2 approaches. In addition, in regards to their treatment approaches and their therapies, again, a lot of similarities. In Ayurveda, you're going to be learning more about Panchakarma, Abhyanga, which is that daily self-massage, which is so great. And if y'all haven't started doing that, please do, because it's one of the foundational basic recommendations that you're going to be offering all your clients. And you can't tell somebody to do something if you're not doing it yourself. it's I used to think of it as like a little self-luxury kind of thing, and now it's just a regular practice, and it feels so good. Of course, we use herbal therapy in our approach, yoga that we've already talked about, pranayama, which is different than breathing techniques, and marma point therapy. Those of you who came to the workshop got a little glimpse of marma therapy, and even if you were on the Zoom sessions. And so in terms of TCM, scraping the skin, cupping, how many of y'all have had cupping before? Anybody had cupping? Was it a good experience for y'all? Those of you who've had cupping? Yeah, I've had it and I really like it. Manjulali actually has those. And she did it on me, and it was just amazing how much just better I felt about after it. Like Ayurveda, they also have a form of massage and bloodletting. That's what we do. I mean, not here in the United States, obviously, but in traditional medicine in India, there was a treatment of bloodletting to Ayurveda. And of course, the meridians, 12 meridians in acupuncture, and we're going to be talking about how that's similar with marma therapy. Again, some of you already got a glimpse of that. And you had a very positive experience with acupuncture. Yeah, so have I. How many of y'all have tried acupuncture? In the chat box? You love it. So you're going to have clients who come to you who've already tried these things. And if they've already tried acupuncture or cupping, or they go get massages on a regular basis, like these are the clients who, in my experience doing the consultations, they're more open and more receptive to the recommendations that you're going to offer them. Like they already started drinking the Kool-Aid, in other words, right? And then we actually share some similarities, even in our different diagnostic methods. You know, we have our threefold assessment. Some of y'all already received that information last week. We look at wastes, and I will tell everybody up front, because talking about poop is a little personal. People, you know, you'll have some people who have no problem talking about their poop and their bowel movements, and then you have some who it's very, very private and they don't want to talk about it. So every consultation I always tell people in Ayurveda, we talk about poop a lot because we believe the importance of a healthy digestive system. So I just like to break the barrier up front, and that way they know I'm going to be asking about their poop habits and, you know, the consistency and, you know, how often they're having a bowel movement. So there are some definitely some differences. Of course, their principles are based on excess, what's deficient, that hot, cold, that yin yang, internal, external, where we're looking at things in a different light. And then we actually, the Sampropti, which you're going to learn about at the end, more towards the end of the program, is, you know, how we come up with the diagnosis type process, and the stages of accumulation, aggravation, spread, localization, and manifestation of the actual disease process. But you're going to learn more about that. But they also, in TCM, they're looking at the tongue, just like we do, and the pulse. And you'll be getting a glimpse of that as well. So marma points, this is, we talked about this last week. There's 107 marma points. The mind is the 108th one. We know that they're related to the elements. They correspond to certain organs. There's various sizes of marma points. Some can be deeper, some are more superficial. We reviewed some just basic for headaches last week, which is basic recommendations that you can offer your clients, things that they can do even at work while they're sitting at their desk. We know that they're vital points of energy. And so we talked a little bit about how they were, you know, came into play with all the martial arts, and it was mainly used for injury, to inflict injury and pain in their opponents. There's just a lot of different ways to use marma therapy, definitely for dosha balancing, and then to enhance awareness, you know, for detoxification. And then we talked a little bit about I had referenced, you know, and I know that some of y'all have already read the book, Our Body Keeps Score, but, you know, how our issues really live in our tissues. And so this is where marma therapy could be really therapeutic and healing for individuals, because again, we really believe in that connection between that mind and body spirit. And then, of course, Sushruta applied the knowledge of marma points to surgery, just so that we were very aware of what to be careful with, so that there wouldn't be injury or death to those marma points. All right, acupuncture. Some of y'all have already tried acupuncture before. Like in Ayurveda, similar to the Ayurveda, the 12 meridians is how they refer to them. Their energy pathways, and they also believe that they're linked to different organs, and they correspond to their philosophy of yin yang therapy. There's 365 points along their meridians, and they also believe the flow of qi, that the flow of qi can actually become blocked. And so the way that they resolve this is through acupuncture pressure to stimulate and unblock that qi. Reflexology. How many of y'all have tried reflexology? In the chat box? No? You have, Marion? How was your experience, Marion, with reflexology? In the chat box. Awesome and painful. Oh, Elizabeth, you like it? So the origins actually date back to the ancient Egyptian and Chinese civilizations. In the 1930s, it was actually developed by a physiotherapist, Eunice Ingham. Go girl power. The premise is that you can treat the whole body and all the organs through the feet. There's actually this big, very intense and intricate mapping of the organs to the bottom of the feet. There's a reflexology, these little shops show up in little strip malls all over the place. I have never done it. I've never experienced it, but they're just very common. And they're usually kind of somewhere close to, I mean, well, I should make that assumption, but anyway, sometimes they're closer to small. So this is a picture I wanted to share with y'all, and how they believe the organs are mapped to the bottom of the feet. So Marion, what was painful about it? If you can describe for those of us who have not tried it, why was it painful? And then Elizabeth, maybe you can share a little bit with your experience in the chat box. Is it, Marion, is it just that they used a very painful approach? Some of the areas were blocked, okay. Elizabeth, what did you like about it? I'm sure it's got to be, yes, relaxing. It was deep but good. Okay, it hurts in the beginning, but through the treatment goes away. All right. So massage in the chat box. Please write and I think I asked the group last week as well. When was the last time you had a massage? In the chat box. And if it's never, a year ago, 2 years ago, before COVID, in the chat box. Oh, good for you, Jamaria, 3 days ago. Look at you. Never, about a year ago. Okay, a few months ago, going next week. Awesome. Okay. So in Ayurveda, we believe that Abhyanga usually go when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, Elizabeth. Okay. Yeah, it's great. It's very healing and very therapeutic. But in Ayurveda, we believe that Abhyanga really nourishes the entire body. It not only does it feel good, it definitely can help with relieving different kind of pain, but it can actually lubricate the joints the way that we do it. It can increase circulation, stimulate internal organs. It can actually help with elimination of impurities from the body, definitely calm the nerves. So we all know that. And then it really helps with that muscle tone and vigor of the dhatus, which you're going to be learning more about, are the tissues in the body. And actually, in Ayurveda, we actually believe that it actually can decrease the effects of aging as well. So massage is of course, very mainstream. Okay, you do oil massage for the scalp every Sunday in our family. I love it. And you're going to be learning about this if you haven't already. And so this is a practice for you to start implementing. Thank you for sharing that. So massage is very mainstream. A lot of massage therapists in our communities. You can find someone Even physicians now refer patients for massages. Chiropractors also refer clients for massage. Even physical therapists. So very, very accepted and incorporated again in that complementary approach to managing a person's health. All right, homeopathy. How many of y'all have heard this term, homeopathy, in the chat box? This is actually, you have, all right, it's a 250-year-old science developed in the late 18th century by a German doctor and biologist. Their approach is the law of similars, like cures like. What is our approach in Ayurveda? In the chat box. Do we approach things opposites cure? Thank you, Marian. Exactly. Yep. We follow the law of opposites, right? So if we have a client who has a lot of heat element, a lot of like say heartburn or acid reflux, a lot of that fire element, that heat element, that pitta element, we're going to want to cool them down. We're going to want to cool them down with food, with drinks, with spices, yoga poses, breathing techniques, all that great fun stuff that you're going to be learning about. And they also believe in I'm going to chop this up, law of infinite ismals or infinite ismals. So it's that whole idea that something's more potent when it's diluted. But they also believe the concept of constitution and vital force, which is shared with Ayurveda, right? So fun fact, it's estimated that chiropractors treat more than how million Americans, adult and children, annually? What do you think the answer is? 25 million, 35 million, or 45 million? 45, 25, 35. Actually, it's chiropractors treat more than, it's estimated anyway, that they treat more than 35 million adults and children. And this is again a recent statistic that I found. Again, I share this with you because when you start doing your client encounters or talking to your friends and family, the chances that they've already engaged in alternative or complementary medicine is really, really high. And it, again, just provides you an opportunity to talk about and introduce Ayurveda and work with those individuals who are definitely already receptive to looking at other forms of care. So chiropractic care, again, it's a form of alternative medicine, and it's concerned with the diagnosis and treatment and prevention of mechanical disorders. And how many of you have gone to a chiropractor? I have. How many of you, and you don't have to share because it's personal, PHIs, we say. Feel free to share if you want, and if not, that's okay. So their approach is all about the musculoskeletal system, right? Especially the spine. It was actually founded in the late 19th century by D.D. Palmer. His son actually expanded chiropractic care in the early 20th century. And so, they're looking at mainly neck and spine issues, and they're doing that spinal manipulative therapy. And if you've gone to a chiropractor, you know what that looks like and what it feels like. But what I didn't know, preparing for this class, I didn't know that surgeons actually refer patients to chiropractors before surgery. So that was something new. I've never worked with surgeons. And then they have that approach, that high velocity, low amplitude thrust. If you've gone to a chiropractor, have they used that little gun looking thing on you? And they can do it manually, but then with a gun also, that, yeah. It's actually kind of cool. I kind of like it. And so their approach is that they believe that there's that magnetic force runs through the nerves rather than the blood. And so their approach is that touch is magnetically healing. And it goes back to that whole thing about laying in hands, right? So osteopathy came together by Andrew Taylor in the 19th century. It's a medical doctor with extra training, 200 extra hours focused on the body's musculoskeletal framework. Their approach is really treating the body as a whole, sometimes and incorporating different complementary medicine type approaches as well, include like massage or other manipulative therapies, a lot of hands-on. There's DOs, very, very common in a lot of practices. I think we have one DO in our practice. They're licensed in all 50 states. They perform the same medical diagnosis and treatments as a medical doctor. They just incorporate different alternative and natural approaches in their treatment recommendations for their patients. So naturopathy, actually I did a consultation on someone who's actually in a program to be a naturopathic doctor. And so they attend a 4-year graduate program as well to practice this form of medicine. And they have their own board. It's more holistic in nature. It focuses on the natural healing power of nature. But what they can do actually varies from state to state. So this is a little bit different. And that they're looking really at their modalities are like herbs, nutrition, hydrotherapy, homeopathy, physical medicine. So very similar to what we're doing in Ayurveda, right? They may not be educated to the same degree as the DOs, the doctors of osteopath. So just to wrap up, I hope you found it as a fun class. But it's really important as you start working with your clients that you be careful of the terminology that we're using. We don't ever want to tell clients, I'm going to prescribe something to you, because we don't prescribe. We offer recommendations. When you're talking about using the term prescribing, that's the medical terminology. And even as counselors, we can get in trouble. And I walk that fine line also all the time. And then just understand where the state that you're living in, if there's any specific regulations or knowledge that you need to have, and how you work with clients specific as a counselor in your state. And then again, to use the skills in your toolkit. I refer clients to massages. I mean, that's just part of what we do, right? In addition to the daily self-abhyanga. And then stay within your scope to protect yourself and your clients. That I actually bolded that bigger because it's really, really important. I recently had a client, actually about a couple of weeks ago, who wanted me to get her off of her diabetes medication. Well, number one, that's not our scope in the United States. And as a nurse, I would not ever put in a client in a position where she would have a bad health outcome. And so we know that, and you're going to learn, there's a lot of very powerful herbs that you'll be studying about, but that we find we have to be always do no harm. That's what we do. We offer healing recommendations through diet, lifestyle changes that can really do make a difference in their clients' lives. But just always stay within your scope, be safe, and have a safe practice. And again, people are interested. I mean, you have so many people who are already engaging in alternative and complementary medicine. Ayurveda, I believe, is at the cusp of really coming into fruition here in the United States. You'll come across a lot of people who don't know how to pronounce Ayurveda, but that's okay. But once you start talking to them about the basic understanding of digestive health, people get it. I mean, think about digestive health alone. How many commercials do we see on gut health on TV now? Like, people are open, people understand our gut microbe and the association between that and our overall health and illnesses. So you as a counselor will have the ability to really impact not only that one client that you're face to face with, but again, like I said earlier, their friends, their family. And I think if there's more of us doing this, that we can really start making changes in health in general. For a lot of people. You heard that they suggest Prozac with ashwagandha. Again, that's not within our scope. We really want to be careful. Once you start working with your clients and you start developing your client encounter forms, there's certain elements that you're always going to want to ask. You're always going to want to ask a client what current medications they're on, any medical diagnosis. It's not, you don't have to know how every medication interacts with the herb, but you have your resources, you can do that research. And then the other thing also, if you have a client like the client that I had, not only did she have diabetes, but other health concerns, you have to talk to your healthcare provider about this, So I gave some basic dietary recommendations, but again, just want the best outcome for our clients. So just, practice from a safe manner. And we, just offering diet recommendations, y'all, we can make a huge, huge impact on a person's life and on their overall health and wellness. I mean, just with dietary recommendations, we get there. If we can get their digestive system, we can get that Agni. If they've got, those two things are powerful tools, powerful tools. Another thing, I mean, just getting people to, you're not going to convert everybody to do yoga poses, and that's okay. But if you're gonna, like, say, when we're talking about the yoga poses, if someone is truly averse, like, no, I'm not interested in doing yoga, I'm just okay. Well, then if you apply the same principles, if you have someone who says, I'm not going to do yoga, and you need to recommend some exercise for a vata, what type of exercise would you recommend for vata in the chat box, other than yoga? What type of exercise could you recommend for a vata person? They got that space and earth element. Y'all, it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, just slow, leisurely walks outdoor for 20 minutes. So for your kaphas, exactly. Kaphas, grounding outside, exactly, Elizabeth. For your kaphas, okay, for the kaphas, and they don't want to do anything, have them do a brisk walk, right? So they can do a brisk walking for 20 minutes. They can do a light jog, exactly, Elizabeth, exactly, right? So we can keep things very, very simple for our clients. And, so that's why when it says use your other skills as tools in your toolkit, you're going to be acquiring a lot of these. And then again, like I share with the students that I had last week, one of my goals in my own practice is to make Ayurveda accessible to everyone. And I think if we approach it that way, like probably I think Marian, the way you do probably in your yoga practice, then we can actually make more of an impact. So I hope that you found this class. It was fun. It was light. Again, there's a need for what we're doing. I think all the complementary medicine and approaches, whether it's massage or cupping or, acupuncture, chiropractic care, a great deal of our population is searching for different alternatives to managing health and wellness. And so those the type of individuals that you're going to run into in your practice as you start working as a counselor, and you'll see that people are really receptive. They want something different. We all do want something different. We don't want to go to the doctor and keep on popping pills for everything, right? And then they give us one pill and then we get a side effects of that, so we got to take another pill for the side effect that we got. So I hope you found it interesting. Please read through the notes and review the information. And yes, Marian, so much hope. Yes, definitely. I love and I truly believe in what we're doing as Ayurveda counselors. All right. So Manjulali, are they okay to take a 2-minute break?